As Colombia reaches the 37th day of national strike mobilizations against the government of Ivan Duque, citizens are insisting on the negotiation of emergency petitions and guarantees for the exercise of the right to protest. Perus candidates in a runoff presidential ballot are closing their electoral campaigns this Thursday. Authorities in Nigeria confirmed that gunmen seized 136 children from an Islamic seminary on Sunday. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. As Colombia reaches the 37th day of national strike mobilizations against the government of Ivan Duque, citizens are insisting on the negotiation of the emergency petitions presented by the protest movement and guarantees for the exercise of the right to protest. Uncertainty regarding the possibility of an end to the nationwide mobilizations continues due to the government's refusal to abide by the Memorandum of Understanding previously reached with the National Strike Committee in order to overcome a stalemate at the negotiating table. The Strike Committee just demonstrated once again its willingness to continue the dialogue process by gradually dismantling some of the roadblocks set up in several parts of the country. However, the government continues to issue new demands while the violent repression by state security forces continues. The International Mission of Solidarity and Human Rights Observation to Colombia offered a preliminary report this Thursday on the conclusions of the verification visits been carrying out in the South American country since May 25th. The report details the state repression against protesters taking part in the national strike mobilizations that the country has been experiencing for more than a month. Spokespersons of the international mission pointed out that there is a media blackout that prevents the world from seeing what the government of Ivan Duque is doing, which they described as a massacre. They stressed that they did not allow themselves to be carried away by information that they could not verify, and for this reason they spread throughout Colombia to gather their own testimonies and figures. They further stated that based on the actions taken by the security forces, an investigation should be carried out against the Colombian government for human rights violations. And the international mission highlighted the revictimization and criminalization to which demonstrators are subjected after having been attacked by the security forces.
The cases of revictimization are notorious, and the victim is usually investigated and criminalized before the attacker. Prosecutors control the hospitals not to inform the victim of his or her rights, but not prosecute and criminalize them according to the incident in which he or she was injured.
Staying in Colombia, new reports of repression by the mobile anti-riot squadron in several cities were filed on Wednesday night. In the capital neighbourhood of Usme, police threw tear gas into homes affecting children and elderly people. A 10-year-old child had to be taken out of his house with breathing difficulties. Similar scenes occurred in Marichuela and Suba on the outskirts of Bogotá. In the city of Popayan, Department of Cauca, human rights organisations reported a heavy police presence in La Esmeralda neighbourhood. In the city of Bucaramanga, several people were injured by security forces who made arbitrary arrests. According to human rights defenders in the city of Medellin, during protests 50 people were seriously injured, more than 100 were severely affected by gases, and at least 10 were taken to hospitals. And in the capital, Bogotá, police forces assaulted a journalist in the community of Usme and prevented protesters from providing him with medical assistance. We offer his testimony.
We were covering all the demonstrations that were happening in Usme, more specifically in Marichuela. We were watching the confrontation between demonstrators and public forces. My colleague and I decided to get closer to take a better record. At that moment, the police attacked us and the demonstrators. We went to the left side of the road, and some patrolmen approached us. They intimidated us. One of them attacked me and put me against the wall, followed by another uniformed officer, and what I felt was a blow to my lower body, and I fell to the ground because it was an extremely hard hit. My colleague approached me to protect me, because when they intervened, 3 more policemen approached, and one of them kicked me in the face. I was half disoriented. My partner was on top of me protecting me. 3 or 4 minutes passed, and we were screaming for help. I was half disoriented, and I checked my leg, and I noticed the bleeding. A first aid guy arrives and checks me, and the uniformed man leaves. After that, about 30 minutes passed, and there was no ambulance service, and they told us that the ambulance that was coming to help us was blocked by the members of the public force, and they did not let it pass, and then, with the help of the community, they brought a board that the front line had. They put me on that board and drove me to a cab. We arrived at the Cami Santa Librada hospital. We waited 15 minutes for them to attend me. I took my turn, they checked me, I received 5 stitches in the wound, and that was it.
In the same community of Osme in Bogota, the police have been throwing tear gas canisters inside residents' homes.
They have been throwing gas inside the houses for a while now. 2 women came out because they were going to take a boy with his hands up and they didn't care, and they sent them in stun guns and gas. After that, they began to throw more gas inside the houses, because we are all witnesses here. They are throwing inside the houses. At that moment, the lady came out with the fainted child. She opened the door, and here we all have the children. As you can see, they were in a totally bad state. So what we are asking is no more abuse from them. They have no reason to throw gas inside the houses, or anything else. They damage a house without talking so much. They are hitting whatever falls.
In the northeast region of Brazil, rural residents are fighting for their right to water, which they have been denied since January by the mayor's office of the city of Atalia. Our team travelled to the territory to learn about the reality faced by these families. More details in the following report by Andre Vieira and Sebastian Soto.
On the margins of Highway 316 in the city of Atalaya, in the state of Alagoas, is the Mariel Franco camp of the landless movement, home to 113 farming families occupying almost 100 hectares of 2 farms. Here they produce corn, beans, cassava, watermelon. In the meantime, the mayor's office is seeking legal action to evict these peasants. But this is not the only problem.
We are here in spite of what the mayor's office did to us. In the middle of the pandemic, they cut off our water supply. We are surviving with a water truck that the state government sends us on Fridays, and that is how we are surviving.
In the country with the world's second highest number of deaths due to COVID-19, water is an indispensable tool in the fight against coronavirus. The peasants denounce that the local authorities are playing with this sanitary necessity.
Look, there is no dialogue. The mayor, the current administration, has used blackmail by stating that they will only resume the water supply if we vacate part of this territory, which, according to her, is for the construction of an industrial center.
Farmer Baman built a system to collect rainwater and use it for her household chores and for the animals. At certain times of the year, however, water is not guaranteed by the municipality, nor does it fall from the sky.
When there is no rain, some of us gather together and go to the nearest river, or we have to go out with a bundle of clothes on our heads to look for water and wash our clothes and take advantage of the opportunity to look for water for our personal use.
The municipality of Atalaya did not respond when questioned about the water cut and the plans to settle these families. In the meantime, the farmers continue to fight for the water and land rights. Besides the difficulties, they donated 5 tons of healthy food produced collectively in the Mariel Franco camp during the pandemic. Andre Vieira and Sebastian Soto, teleSUR, Brazil.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Perus candidates in a runoff presidential ballot are closing their electoral campaigns this Thursday. The vote will be held this coming Sunday, June 6. Left-winger Pedro Castillo, slightly ahead in opinion polls, delivered a plan to fight the coronavirus pandemic and strengthen the country's public health system to the Dean of Peru's Nurses Guild, Liliana La Rosa, in the country's capital, Lima. Meanwhile, his opponent, Keiko Fujimori, representing corporate and right-wing interests, visited a different branch of the same guild. Both candidates' campaign teams had chosen a central San Martin Square in Lima for their closing rallies Thursday evening. However, the government decided at the last minute to fence off the venue to avoid confrontations. The crisis in Peru's public education system is one of the key issues to be addressed by the new administration, resulting from this coming Sunday's second-round presidential elections. In constant decline for the past 3 decades, the pandemic has dealt the sector a final blow. Presidential candidates Pedro Castillo and Keiko Fujimori have offered to double the education budget, but without saying how or when that will be done. More with our correspondent Veronica Insausti.
This is the second school year with online education, but only 39% homes nationwide have internet and 34% have a computer, while in rural areas only 6% of the population have access to these services, according to information from the Ombudsman Office. These deficiencies added to a collapsed infrastructure and a deficit of 50% in teachers hiring.
Historically, politicians have no interest in solving the education problem. Why should they have it now? I wish it were so, but it must also be said that education in Peru is one more reason for people to feel that social distance, because there are good schools in Peru, of course, like Newton, which costs $1,000 a month and $18,000 as entrance fee. If you have that kind of money, you can get a good education. That is for a minority. The vast majority in Peru do not have access to a decent education.
During the last 3 decades and progressively, the state have been handing over to private companies the responsibility of guaranteeing access to education. Only 38% of public schools nationwide have potable water, and in the last 8 years they have destroyed public employment in the teaching profession, reducing the number of appointed teachers from 330,000 to 148,000.
Stop privatizing. Both Castillo and Veronica Mendoza agreed that they had to reverse the negative tendency of appointing teachers and start appointing at least 50,000 teachers every year.
With a deficit in human resources and the vast majority of schools in a state of emergency declared by the Ministry of Education itself, the state assigns a large percentage of its annual budget to sponsoring private education and exonerating them from paying taxes.
What does the state have to do financing private universities and this destruction of teachers' jobs, of which Castillo has also been a victim himself? That should end, and we should return to having a public education service of appointed teachers and make a significant investment in basic education, not disinvest as these gentlemen pretend to do. Under the pretext that they are reforming the service, they are actually privatizing it.
Presidential candidates Keiko Fujimori and Pedro Castillo have promised to double the budget assigned to the sector, which today is 4% of the gross domestic product, an increase that has been in waiting for more than 20 years, when in the framework of the so-called national agreement. All political parties committed to increase education funding. Veronica Ansausti, teleSUR Perus.
A European court ruled that former independentist Catalan leader Charles Puigdemont and 2 of his allies regained provisional political immunity as members of the European Parliament. The trio is wanted by Spain on allegations of sedition following Catalonia's attempt to gain independence in 2017 via referendum, which Madrid described as constitutionally illegal. Puigdemont and Antoni Comín are additionally accused of embezzlement. All 3 live in exile. The court decision would in theory allow them to freely travel within European Union countries, but their lawyer advised them not to go back to Catalonia. The sentence will now be subject to review by the European Parliament for observations before a final decision is made. Spain does not recognise the trio as European members of Parliament. A 2-day meeting of health ministers of the Group of 7 started Thursday at Oxford University in England. The rare presidential meeting gathers the top health officials of the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan and the United States. The University of Oxford is a key player in the development of vaccines against the coronavirus. It's where the AstraZeneca jab was created. In a statement, the British government said ministers had committed to fight future health threats by working together to identify early warning signs from animals and the environment. G7 companies that have developed vaccines are fighting proposals for a temporary waiver on intellectual property rights to allow wider manufacturing of jabs for massive immunisation in developing countries.
Well, we'll be working together with G7 partners to try to meet the objective that a vaccine is made available right across the world. After all, this is a global pandemic and nobody is safe from it until everybody is safe.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Authorities in Nigeria confirmed that gunmen seized 136 children from an Islamic seminary on Sunday. The Niger state government first reported the raid on the school in the town of Tingina on Monday, but did not announce the number of children seized. Armed gangs have been terrorizing inhabitants in northwest and central Nigeria by looting villages, stealing cattle and taking people hostage. Gunmen carrying out kidnapping for ransom are responsible for a series of raids on schools and universities in the north of the country in recent months, in which more than 800 students have been abducted since December. In a statement, the government said it has initiated the negotiations to bring the students back safely.
I appeal to the government, they should try by all possible ways to protect our peoples for us, our children for us. We cannot say anything. They tried with the effort that they made so far, and we are hoping they are going to try harder to bring back our children successfully.
Rising violence in northwest Nigeria's Zamfara state is stoking a humanitarian crisis, according to international medical charity Doctors Without Borders. In a statement published on Thursday, the charity said it had already treated over 10,000 children between January and April for severe acute malnutrition, measles, malaria and other conditions, representing 54% more than in the same period last year. Nearly 700,000 people were internally displaced in northwest and north-central Nigeria in February, including more than 124,000 in Zamfara alone, according to the UN Migration Agency. The authorities are struggling to respond in a region that has already recorded the highest poverty rate in Nigeria, the International Crisis Group think tank said in a report. Thousands took to the streets of Sudan's capital, Khartoum, on Thursday, stepping up their demand for justice for protesters killed during a crackdown on anti-government demonstrations 2 years ago. Ahead of Thursday's protests, Sudanese authorities had closed off the main roads leading to the army headquarters in Khartoum and urged demonstrators to stay away from the site. Protesters rallied to mark the second anniversary of a violent dispersal of a protest camp set up outside the military headquarters on June 3, 2019, and others elsewhere in the country, just weeks after the military overthrew President Omar al-Bashir after months of protests. The raid on the camp killed at least 128 people, according to activists, with families of the victims still waiting for justice.
Took to the streets against Bashir, and now I am against this government I helped take power, and I was imprisoned and flogged during the last revolution. The first message to the families of the martyrs who died is that they are not only our sons, they are also our brothers. Don't expect justice from this current civil and military government.
All of them, they only think about themselves. We are the ones who brought them to power, and they failed to bring justice to the martyrs. Bring them justice to shoot our hearts.
The South African capital Cape Town rolled out the red carpet for the annual International Tourism Film Festival Africa Award ceremony. Johan Abrahams attended the event and brings us details.
The festival, founded in 2019, is hosted in proud cooperation with the International Tourism Film Festivals Committee. With more than 800 entries from almost 100 countries, of which a quarter were African, the competition was fierce. All video content related to the travel and tourism industry are invited to participate. Organizers say film is a powerful medium in stimulating tourism and travel.
Okay, so what we are trying to achieve is to bring tourism and film together so we can showcase South Africa as a filming destination and a leisure destination as well as a business destination.
The two-day festival kicked off with a series of educational and thought-provoking masterclasses which included tourism promotion through film.
This kind of award is important because we haven't really had a platform where there are accolades given for producing great travel films.
In the African competition, the commercial Because South Africa, produced by the WWP Group for South African Tourism, was distinguished with the Grand Prix Africa ITFA 2021 prize. As COVID-19 caused numerous logistical challenges, it made sense to combine the Afrocentric version of the event with the international one this year.
And what is really cool is the consul generals from the various countries that entered actually came to collect their countrymen's awards, and that just shows people are hungry to start synergizing a way forward, and we we're moving out of the problem headspace into the solution headspace, which is great.
The International Committee of Tourism Film Festivals partnership with the ITFA is their first official backing of such an event on the African continent. This is Johan Abrams for teleSUR in Cape Town.
Iranian firefighters managed to extinguish a massive fire that tore through an oil refinery in Tehran. The Deputy Oil Minister said the blaze was first fully contained and then finally put out. He praised the courageous actions by firefighters which led to the complete extinguishing of the fire and prevented the flames from spreading to other nearby tanks. Authorities said the blaze started on Wednesday night after an explosion caused by a leaking gas pipe. Teams of firefighters were seen battling the blaze in footage from the scene broadcast by state television. The refinery, located in a large industrial zone on the outskirts of the capital and only a few hundred metres from residential areas, has been in operation since 1986 and has a production capacity of 250,000 barrels per day. Now we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. And you can catch up on our shows on our YouTube channel. For teleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.